Hello everyone, in this video I'll show you how to make this beautiful honeycomb smocking top. It's a very simple top, it's a nail-end top. The only time consuming part would be the honeycomb, but once that is done, I think the rest will be very easy. And also whenever I upload a tutorial, there are few of you who ask like where the basic bodice block is. I have actually made a separate video on how to draft the basic bodice block, but I have also decided to add that drafting in the beginning of this video. I'll also include the timestamp, which as of now I don't know how it is done, but I'll figure that out. So in case you already have your own basic bodice block, or you know how to do my block, then you can skip that part and go directly watch the video. But if you're new to the page and you really want to know how that is done, then it'll be helpful for you. So let's get straight into the video. Let's start with the measurement. Neck circumference, measure around the neck, leaving about 1 inch of ease. Bust circumference, measure around the fullest part of your bust. Waist circumference, measure around the narrowest part of your waist, slightly above the navel. Shoulder width, measure from the highest point of the neck to the edge of the shoulder. Front length, measure from the highest point of the neck to the narrowest part of the waist. You may notice a difference between the front and back length. If the difference is less than 1 inch, you can use the same measurement. If it is more, draft them separately. Nape to waist, measure from the back of the neck to the narrowest part of the waist. Arm side depth, measure from the nape down to the level of the armhole crease. Back width, measure across the back from one armhole crease to the other. Across chest, measure across the front from one armhole crease to the other. Bust depth, measure from the highest point of the neck down to the bust point. Bust point to point, measure the distance between both the bust points. Let's start with the back bodice. First, take your bust measurement, divide it by 4 and add a small amount of ease. For the neckline, calculate the neck depth by dividing the neck circumference by 16 and the neck width by dividing it by 5. Next, for the back width, divide your back measurement by 2 and add a little ease. For the shoulder, take your shoulder measurement and add extra allowance for the dot. Now for the waist, add ease to your waist measurement and divide the total by 4. To find the back dot intake, subtract the waist measurement from the bust measurement after adding ease. Now moving on to the front bodice. Again, divide your bust by 4, but this time add slightly more ease than the back. Keep the armhole depth the same as the back. For the neckline, the width remains the same as the back and the depth is calculated by dividing the neck circumference by 6 and adding a little extra. For across chest, divide the measurement by 2 and add a bit of ease. To calculate the shoulder dot, divide the bust measurement by 20. For the waist, follow the same method as the back, add ease and divide by 4. Finally, to distribute the front dot, minus the waist from the bust measurement with ease. Okay, let's start with the back bodice block. First, draw a shoulder line. Then, measure your full length downward minus 14.7 inches. I am marking the same on the other side. Draw a line connecting these points. At the bottom, mark your back width, which is 8.62 inches. And mark the same measurement on the shoulder line and connect it to form a rectangle. Next, mark your neck depth as 0.8 inches and width as 2.6 inches. Using a French curve, draw your neckline. Now from just below the neckline, mark your arm side depth. From the high point of the shoulder, measure down the same arm side depth and draw a horizontal line. On that line, mark your back width, which is 6.5 inches, and square it up. Now add a 1 inch shoulder slope and mark your shoulder width as 4.5 inches. If you're not making a jacket or coat, you can totally skip the shoulder dot. But if you want to include it, here's how. Find the midpoint of your shoulder. From there, go 2 inches down. Then mark 0.5 inch towards the neckline side. From the midpoint, mark 0.25 inch on both the side and connect everything to form your dot. Now find the midpoint of your armhole depth. Draw a straight line from the shoulder to that point. Mark a 1 inch reference point and shape your armhole using a French curve. Next, find the midpoint of your back width and mark that on the waistline as well. Connect these with a straight line. So as per our calculation, we need a total dot intake of 1.5 inches. We'll give 0.5 inch on either side for the waist dart and 0.5 inch to the side seam. That's it, your back bodice block is done. Now let's move on to the front. Start again with a shoulder line. Mark your full length and square it across. Now mark your bust width, which is 9.125 inches. Mark the same on the shoulder line and form your rectangle. Keep the neck width same as the back, 2.6 inches, and mark the neck depth as 2.9 inches. Then draw your neckline using a French curve. Mark the armhole depth same as the back and square across. On that line, mark your across chest measurement, which is 6.25 inches. Mark the same on the shoulder line and draw a straight line down. Now add a 1 inch shoulder slope and mark your shoulder width as 4 inches. From the highest point of the shoulder, measure your bust depth, minus 9 inches. From there, half of the bust point measurement, which is 3.75 inches. Now divide your shoulder into 2 and connect that point into the bust point. Mark your shoulder dot value as 1.6 inches and connect that to the bust point as well. Next, mark half of the bust point measurement on the waistline and connect it straight. So here we have a total dot intake of 2 inches. We'll split it as 1.5 inches for the waist dart and 0.5 inches for the side seam. Now fold your shoulder dart like I showed. Then mark a 1.5 inch shoulder slope and using that as a reference, redraw your shoulder as 4 inches. Find the midpoint of the armhole depth. Measure the dart intake there and use it as a guide to draw your armhole with a French curve. And that's it. Your front basic bodice block is complete. Now for the top, we are going to make, I've transferred the shoulder dot to the waist dart. For the neckline, we are going with a boat neck. From your existing front neckline depth, come down half an inch and draw a reference line. Next, from the shoulder, mark your desired neck width. I have chosen 1.5 inches. Draw another reference line and then sketch the neckline curve. That's all for the front. Now let's move on to the back. I have removed the shoulder dot. From the existing back neckline, come down 1 inch and draw a reference line. Mark the same neck width as front 1.5 inches and draw another reference line. Then sketch the back neckline as well. Now let's create the A-line flare. You can simply extend the side seam and finish it, but this is how I do it professionally and I wanted to show you all the method. From the armhole, mark 3 inches. At the waist, mark 2.5 inches and connect these 2 points using a ruler. We'll do the same for the back. Again, mark 3 inches from the armhole and 1.5 inches from the waist. Connect these 2 points with a straight line. Now I'm going to cut and spread the pattern. Next, I'll trim off all the excess paper all around. Place the pattern pieces onto another sheet of paper and secure them with a tape. Now spread it across for 1.5 inches. I'm adding only a minimum amount of flare because I'm using leftover fabric from a design I made earlier. So I have some fabric limitations. However, you can always add more volume by spreading the dart gap further. The length of the top I need is 22 inches. So I'll measure 22 inches from the shoulder and draw a horizontal guideline. Now mark the 22-inch length at the side seam as well. Connect the hem with a smooth curve and extend the side seam to meet it. Once that's done, you can cut out the front pattern. That's it for the front. Now let's move on to the back. Again, place the pattern onto another sheet of paper, tape it down and secure it. Measure 1.5 inches, spread the pattern and secure that gap with a tape. Then at the bottom of the side seam, add another 1 inch of spread and tape it in place. As I mentioned earlier, you can increase the flare as much as you like depending on the look you are going for. For the back length, repeat exactly the same step we did for the front and then trim off the excess paper. And that's it. Your front and back pattern pieces are now ready. This is the fabric I'm going to use. Since it has checks, I don't really need to draw any guidelines, but I have added lines just to make it easier for you to follow. First, decide the finished width of the honeycomb smocking you want. I want my finished honeycomb panel to be 15 inches wide. The pleat intake will be 0.5 inch, which means the visible pleat after folding will be 0.25 inch. And I'll also leave an 1 inch gap before starting the next pleat. And I'll continue this pattern to create the honeycomb. To calculate the fabric required, I simply double my desired finished width and then add an extra 5 inches to the account of shrinkage that can happen while you stitch the honeycomb. So for a finished width of 15 inches, I need 30 inches plus 5 inches extra, giving me a total of 35 inches for the honeycomb section. Before you start the honeycomb, on both the sides, leave about 10 inches of plain fabric. The reason I haven't left the 10 inches of fabric on both the sides is because I'm working with leftover fabric. The total width I have available right now is only 30 inches. So I'll need to cut an extra piece of fabric and attach it later to achieve the required width. This is something I'm doing only because of the fabric limitation I have. If you are starting with a fresh piece of fabric, you don't need to do this. You just can leave 10 inches on either side and then start your honeycomb. See, I have pinned the pleat. So the 1/2 inch after I pin and when I stitch, the visible will be only 0.25 inch. The pleats are all done as you can see, and I have stitched them to secure them in place. I have used only the heat erasable pen, so I'll just iron and remove these lines. Now I'm going to draw a line horizontally with 1 inch gap. Now this is how it will look. You can start stitching the honeycomb. Simply stitch the pleats in an alternative pattern. As you can see, I'm stitching these two pleats together first. Once I'm done, I'll stitch the next two pleats in the row below. Then I'll skip the pleat in between and move slightly upward to stitch the next pair. Continue repeating this pattern to create the honeycomb design. This is a finished honeycomb. Like I said, I didn't have the excess fabric. Now what I'm going to do is attach the excess fabric, and then I'll place my paper pattern on top, and then I'll cut the neckline and the armhole. After cutting the neckline and the sleeve, this is how it will look. But what I would suggest is just place the lining first, or the facing, whatever you're going to use, on the neckline, and then cut the neck shape. Otherwise the neckline will start forming a lot of gaping. And also whenever you're doing the honeycomb, just make sure the stitches are put using a double or triple thread, because they're very loose and then they can easily come out. Now I'm going to finish the armhole and the neckline. I've also placed the back pattern on the fabric, and I've cut the back fabric and the lining. I'll also finish the armhole and the neckline for the back. This is the back piece. I'm going to finish the armhole and the neckline. Now for the front, before I flip it, I want to clip the edges so the neckline shape forms nicely. And also to reduce the bulkiness, I'm going to cut off the edges. Now just take the inside out through the shoulder. Once done, this is how it will look. Now we are going to do the same for the back and finish the armhole and the neckline. Now I'll attach the shoulder. Once the shoulder is done, I will start finishing the side seam. And once you finish the hem, this is how it will look. I also made a similar design for someone I know, and I added sleeves, and this is how it looked.